We are sending our gasoline tax to Sacramento, and we're not getting it back. And it seems to be funneled into the high-speed rail, so I'm not supportive of it.
It's an interesting question because I think that there's not a whole lot as a board of supervisors that we can do about it, except we do have legislative, we take legislative stands on things, and we certainly can feedback a legislative stance. So as individuals, we can make our views known and see if the rest of the board would like to lobby, in a certain sense, lobby Sacramento on that. And no, it doesn't come anywhere near us. And it is supposed to ultimately serve 90% of our population, but that doesn't include us. And as a member of the San Luis Obispo Council of Governments Board, we certainly, we have lobbied and lobbied and lobbied and lobbied for some money to come this side, because nothing is happening for us over on this side. Nothing's happening to make the rail more effective for us here, to give us a train that goes to San Francisco rather than a bus and a train. Mm-hmm. And nothing's happening to allow us to have our two little Amtrak trains to make it more accessible for tourists. So I think that there's definitely it's unbalanced, and it's certainly not serving us.
It takes 8 hours to get to Davis with train.
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm trying to keep it from being a conversation.
Our missing supervisor has quite a large ass of money, and it is known that he has many developers that are, I guess I will say this, you may not want to, pay to play. And I was just wondering if you could tell me who your largest donors are. It'd be interesting to know.
Well, my brother gave me $1,000. Yeah, very sweet. Peter Keith has given me a few $1,000s. I think $7,000, $8,000. Peter was a former mayor of Grover Beach, and he's gives a lot of money to charity, and he has developed some small subdivisions. He's retired now, and he manages investments, his real estate investments. Oh, Dennis Allen has given me, I think, $1,500. Dennis is a real estate broker, and one that I respect. We've always had a mutual respect. I got $1,000 from the.
So no $50,000 checks.
No. No. And the reason I'm getting checks from real estate people is because I've been a real estate broker for almost 20 years, and I'm very proud that my industry believes in me and supports me.
In my campaign, we're taking a lot of small checks, $25, $50, $100 checks, and I'm not complaining at all. They're very, very good, because we've received hundreds of them. My largest donation is $2,000. I received it from a lady who lives in San Luis. She's retired. Her name is Leslie Hall. That's my largest donation. I've received several, maybe $1,000 donations. I can't think off the top of my head of any that stand out. Oh, one of them, yes, the San Luis Obispo Association of Realtors gave me $1,000 after an interview with them. That's the only organization that has given me any money at all. The rest have all been from private small donations. And I think this is very telling. It's a great question, because our opponent, who's not here today, is raising hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's coming from a handful of developers. And you phrased it, pay to play. That's exactly what's happening in our community. I've known these developers longer than our supervisor has been in our community. I've met with them. I went to Cal Poly with a few of them, and so I've known them for 40 plus years, and not once when they've come to me, and we've met over projects in the city and that kind of stuff, not once have they ever offered me a check, because it doesn't take a check to play with me. it takes a good project and one that's good for our community. So I am really the antithesis of our supervisor now. That does not ring with me at all, the money. So I'm very proud of my donations, many small ones.
Would you let me jump in
Go
on this?
ahead. Sure.
I analyzed the income that, some of the income, I didn't get through it, it was a lot, that our current supervisor received. And he received $4,000 from the folks who's did the investment in Pismo Beach out on the pier, who caused all the uproar with Eric Howell at the Coastal Commission, because they donated $4,000 to Adam Hill and they donated only $1,500 to Eric Howell. That's interesting they got so mad at Eric, but sometimes you don't know who's donating because they're all related on the same project, but you've got an architect and you've got a developer and you've got the various people, then you've got the chief executive and the chief executive's wife, and they have different names, and so you don't always know who's who, but there are a huge number of people. Most of the people who donated to him actually had projects before the county in 2015. A good number of them did. So we've got Chevron, we've got Phillips 66, and Trilogy, and Daniel Marmon, who's married to the Trilogy chief executive, Somera Capital Management, Gary Grossman, and several of his employees and people who were working for his campaign have given him a lot of money. John Scardino, Stacy Bromley, who's the real estate agent for the Silver Shoals project, Dana Severy, who's Postcard Properties LLC, and all of these are the developers on projects before the county at this moment.
I just want to say that's one reason he doesn't have to show here, because he's assured that he has big bucks coming in. He can buy the TV, the radio, the paper. He doesn't have to come to functions like this and talk to us. So I just wanted to make that point.
There's $61,000 at least of 131 that he's raised, almost half, that I could find.
Dovetailing on to that, those comments, and thank you very much for raising this issue. So are you reading off the, I guess, for the public to know, the Form 497, I believe it is?
Actually,
Excuse me, where can the public find that information? Because I think you have a lot of people supporting you both and who are very concerned about the donations given to Adam Hill. So where can the common person find that information? Because I will say it publicly, I don't think we can always count on our local media to bring these matters to light. That's question number one. Only one question.
Yes. All right. We have a lot of questions.
Thank you. And I'm also really interested to see the Chevron remediation take place, and I don't know what steps you're both willing to take to have that happen in San Luis Obispo.
I want to say where the common person could find this information, but I would also like to know where the uncommon person would find that information.
You just get a taste of Mila. Thank you, Mila. It's a good question. I'll answer the easy question first, and that's a Form 460. All of us as candidates have to file those with our local jurisdiction. In this case, it's with the county. The last filing period was the end of December. The next one is coming up. It ends April 23rd. We have to have those filed by April 28th. You can find those on the county's website. Follow through, go to the county clerk recorders, and you can find each of our individual forms on there. Right now, in fact, any donation we receive of $1,000 cumulative since March 9th has to be reported within 24 hours. So the rules are very clear about what we have to do, very transparent. You'll know exactly who's donating to us, especially these last few days. And I'm going to avoid your question because it was the second one.
Yes, my apologies. My apologies. Maybe somebody else can ask that later.
If you want to check in.
Well, Dan has so much integrity, how can I stomp on that? I wanted to, if you're going online to find it, it's very simple, I know, because I had to report something today. So you Google San Luis Obispo County campaign finance, and it'll bring up, and you'll find San Luis Obispo County, and you click on that, and then you just search campaign finance, and you'll find two little things you can click on, And one of them is net file for us to file, and the second one is I don't remember what it is because I don't go there as often, but basically it's the one that you guys can get into, and then you can download it. And then if you're really, really competent, you can actually convert the PDF to an Excel file, and that's really easy to analyze then.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask that we do keep it to one question because there are a lot of people who want to ask questions. So keep it to one and try to keep them short.
This is gonna be a real short question. I'd like to know what you guys think the BOS can do to create jobs in San Luis Obispo County.
One of the things that I would like to see them do, and I think this also helps with affordable housing, is I would like to see them put in infrastructure up front of development rather than behind it. Because when you put it in up front, so we're talking roads, you don't have the issues that we've got out on Broad right now, the issues on the 101 that we have right now. And if you put in water up front and you make sure we really do have water up front, you don't have the issues that we have right now. Whenever you're building infrastructure, it creates jobs, and we haven't done anything, we haven't done it properly since the 60s. We really need to work on our infrastructure. That will create jobs. And it'll help with development too, and affordable housing.
As a board of supervisors, really we don't technically create jobs unless we create more government jobs. We can foster environments that are good for new businesses to come in, and we can do that by, keeping our fees streamlined, our process streamlined. We can do that, and those are the easy decisions for us to make, I think. But touching on the housing is critical because we have such a huge jobs housing imbalance in our communities that unless we provide housing, because we're losing potential businesses who come to our area because the first thing they look for is where are my employees going to be housed? And I can't tell you how many have turned away and walked because we just don't have the type of inventory and the affordability that they're looking for. So I think to answer the question, to foster jobs, we need to also connect with the housing that goes along with it.
Good evening, my name is April. I'm a District 3 resident of the Bermuda Triangle, I like to call it, in this area. As you know, my concern that I brought to both of you and my absent supervisor is the lack of availability to meet with that position for concerned residents in the area. And Dan, you touched on the fact that Avila does have one, but I'd like to know that if you guys really do understand what it takes to get an advisory council in our area, what an urban reserve line is or what a village reserve line is, and why this area does not qualify to even have that. So it's nice to say you would want one, but we can't have one because we don't fit within those requirements. So could you please explain to me how we're going to get one if you're a supervisor?
Well, in that, that's a process, and we don't need the advisory council necessarily, and I'm going to step back a little bit, the formality of a council, and I advocated for this at our last debate, and I will continue to. A group of neighbors can form their own commission or council, whatever they want to call it. And that's where, if it comes from the grassroots, and say you have 25 of your neighbors that really want to pull together as a committee and say, we're going to meet once a month, and Dan, you're my supervisor, and we want you here on the second Monday of the month, then I will be there. Whether it can legally be formalized with the county, that I don't know. Avila has done it. They're getting ready, or the discussion this last week was to expand their boundaries, and the discussion was, what do we have to do legally to do that? They want to go higher up Sea Canyon. All their council has to do is decide those boundaries, and those will be expanded. So I think the bigger issue for me is not necessarily the formality of it, because in those advisory meetings, and it's really good because your supervisor needs to be a part of that discussion, and they are a part of the agenda in Avila, and they would be a part of the agenda here, where in essence, mandated to come to your meeting. Ours doesn't, makes a habit of not coming, but as your supervisor, that would be a regularly scheduled meeting every month, and it doesn't have to have that formality. Ideally, it would be, but the idea is to get the recommendation from the people communicated to the supervisor. That's the whole point of going to these advisory meetings, and I think we could do that without the formality of it if it's not legally possible. Thank you, good question.
So I'm going to say that on a little more grassroots level. This is the United States of America. If you all want to get together and figure out a way to talk to your elected representatives, do it. Just do it. And if you don't want to, don't do it. And the most exciting thing for me about campaigning, in fact, it's when I got elected as mayor, I was lonely because I'd been knocking on doors for so many months, twice around the city of Grover Beach on every door. I missed being able to talk to people. And that's how you really get to know what's going on, is when you're walking up and down someone's street, you know what's going on. When you're knocking on someone's door, you understand about the streets and everything else that they're facing. So if you want to do it, do it. And I'll be there to support you, because that's what really excites me about being elected, is working with you to get things done that are constructive. That's my job. That's what you expect me to do, and that's what I'd like to do.
Hi, I'm Mike Hannon. I live right next door to Clive here. And I think the biggest issue for me and a lot of people in this area is the oil company in Bryce Canyon. Freeport-McMoRan has an application in for a waiver for 31 wells, but actually that's a foot in the door for 481 new wells, and all the toxic chemicals they're going to be steaming into the ground. And I know right now it's up to the EPA, but the EPA has a horrible record in California of protecting drinking water from fracking. So my question is, and I don't trust the EPA to do the right thing in this case. My question is, can the supervisors do anything about this, and what is your personal opinion on this?
Well, thank you for raising that question, because that's the million-dollar question in this neighborhood. Yeah, the supervisors can do something about it. It will ultimately come to the supervisors. And as far as the EPA is concerned, well, let me start further down. I think that your county's supervisor's representative on the Planning Commission passed the buck. He could have stood up for you and represented you. I don't think he did. I think he wimped out. And then I think the state of California not only wimped out, but I don't think they even followed fair political process. I was there. And the comment I made is, if you want us to trust you, give us a reason. And because for over 100 years, you've never given us any reason to trust you as far as oil is concerned. And I think they passed the buck. And they even said it. Well, it doesn't matter if we pass it, because the next guy up won't pass it. You know, they make the ultimate decision. And now they've passed the buck up to the feds and the federal government. And so I did it when we had the meet and greet here, where I originally met Clive and several of the rest of you around here. I agreed that I would write a letter. And I did draft that letter, and then I sent it round and said, okay, did I get it? Do I need to change this in any way? And then redrafted it a little bit and sent off a letter as the former mayor of Grover Beach, saying, look, I'm a neighbor, this affects me too, it affected me too, and I know about the water because I was the mayor and I dealt with it for 10 years in my elected position. So yes, the Board of Supervisors can do something. Yes, I think it's an issue, and it alarms me most of all because there's more study we can do and it hasn't been done. And that study those studies of the surrounding wells need to be done, and protections need to be put in place, and as a real estate broker, I never sell a property out here without first saying, get your wells tested. And the best thing all of you can do, test your wells once a year. So many people we've come across, that we have arsenic in our water, we have iron in our water. In the city of Grover Beach, we've always had nitrates in our water, so none of these things are a surprise to me. And so some of that onus is on us to look after ourselves, but, well, I don't need to say anything else.
I think the short answer is yes, we can do something. And the status right now is, of course, it was approved by the Planning Commission back at the end of last year, and it will be coming, the conditional use permit to continue that, because their use permit expired, and they have those 31 wells left to drill. And so now the Board of Supervisors will make that decision whether it requires that use permit, otherwise they cannot do it. So yes, it's their decision whether to move that use permit forward or say no. As far as what the EPA will do, and I think they're scheduled to hear it next year or to make some decision. And at this point, I don't want to sound like I'm avoiding it, but if I am on the Board of Supervisors, to comment either way on that now, there again would prejudice my decision then. But if I were sitting on the board now, and this conditional use permit came to me for renewal, I would be inclined to put it off until at least we see what the EPA says about the additional 481 wells that are proposed in the future. There's no reason for us to speed up this 31 wells at this point when we're waiting for this other decision to happen later. So yes, I believe the Board of Supervisors can do something right away.
Go ahead, Jeanette. Stand up and...
Hi. My name's just across the road on the other ridge. I'm concerned about how you might secure us more water. And especially in light that maybe many of you don't know, that there is a Klamath River that starts in Oregon, southern Oregon, and by 2020, they're going to blow up all 4 dams that are on it that are even producing hydroelectric power. That water could come down here or in other places. But for our area, I'm concerned what you think you could do to help secure more water when it rains.
Thank you, great question. There's lots of options we have, and of course, part of the policy for the county is to evaluate every resource we have before we move forward with a new one. That's just their policy. We have obviously groundwater, and the entire county is different as far as the availability of groundwater. We have surface storage in 4 dams. We have recycled water. We have different projects going on in all parts of the county. Pismo Beach is considering recharging their water basin with recycled water. In our city, we have up to 2 million gallons a day we can provide of tertiary treated recycled water that we're looking at moving it outside of the city limits so we can share it with the Edna Valley, different things like that, because it's a waste to send. We're required by the Water Quality Control Board to release 1 million gallons into Samos Creek. We dump 3.5 million gallons a day into the creek. That's a waste of water to send back down to the ocean. I think storage and delivery is the key. I mentioned my uncle was supervisor back in the 60s and 70s. That was the last dam built, Lopez Dam. I think it was finished in the late 60s, 69 or 70. And so it's been 46 years since we've secured any surface storage. Why not capture it before it heads out to the ocean? And then, of course, you have to deal with evaporation and other things too. We do that in the city of San Luis. We have 3 surface storage. And that really is the most efficient way and cost-effective way to deliver water to your residents. Not every community has the opportunity to have surface storage. However, the county, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, did a study of potential surface storage places, and they identified 11 or 12 throughout the county that if the desire was there to build dams and store the water, they could do it. However, there's never been the political will to do it. So the options are there. We have desal out there that will come to this part of the county if that moves forward. And if you're following that, they just appropriated, I think, $900,000 to move forward with the environmental review. And it was received by the Board of Supervisors with a unanimous vote to move forward. That's an option. It's very costly water, but it is water, I think up to 1,300 acre feet a year. But it's very costly, but it's water. So we have recycled, we have desal, we have a basin, we have surface storage. We have lots of opportunities. We just need to manage that rain when it hits. And so I think surface storage really is the most economical in the long run, but we have some environmental concerns as well.
One thing that I learned, and I was happy to learn it, is that water flowing down the creeks isn't an altogether bad thing. We're not losing all of it. Because when it flows down the creeks, it does permeate into the aquifer, and it does provide water, agricultural water. So the farmers like that, and if the farmers like it, that's a good thing. So it's not altogether bad. We should continue to let some water continue to flow, not just for the little steelhead trout, but also for recharge of the basin. There's some other things we can do. We can shore up the dams that we've got, or the reservoirs that we've got. We have 2 oil companies, and the agreement we made with Phillips 66 out on the Mesa, and they use 1,100 acre feet a year and then clean it up and put it back in the ocean, or not put it back, they put it into the ocean. The agreement we have with them is that they can take as much water as they want, except in cases of extreme drought. No one at the county has said one tiny little word to them about that. And I think we need to be talking to Phillips about that before we do anything else. The other option is stormwater, and of course when it rains, that all goes out to the ocean, and we could be recapturing a whole lot of stormwater. Also, the county's policy is out of date. We need to change the policy, because their policy says that dams will be our last resort. Well, that needs to be looked at. And what I would really like to see happen, I think that what they've done has been really short-sighted, to go charging off towards the desal. It's a wonderful idea. The Diablo idea is extremely creative. And I love coming up with creative ideas, but it should be one of many. To go charging off and spending almost $1 million on that one, when we have so many other opportunities, I think is irresponsible. And then at the same time to say, well, we're not going to help North County, they need to help themselves. Well, excuse me, they've just spent $1 million helping South County. How is that fair? And so what I would like to see them do is to take those really talented staff that we have at the county, and their ability to find other talented resources if we need them, and grab together all the options, evaluate all of the options for cost and for impact, and then come up with take those and come up with a plan for the emergency, immediate, short term, for the medium term and the long term. And throw the money at that and throw our resources at that, rather than charging down one road. So that's what I'd like to see us do with that.
Carolyn, what are your takes on Diablo Canyon in general? How much longer will it be with us?
To some extent, that I think is going to be a decision of Diablo. The state has put such strong, they're bringing in such strong restrictions and regulations that it's possible that they will decide themselves that it won't be worth relicensing. And that's something that I think is critical for us to look at. What will we do when they go? Because it's not a matter of if, it's probably a matter of when. And so how will we replace those funds? And for me, part of that is that we do need to look at other ways of creating jobs and creating income. But the other thing is we need to look at ways to manage what we've got better. And I bet we can manage what we've got a lot better. And I've just mentioned a way we could do that. So it's not always about bringing in more money. It's sometimes a way about managing. It's about managing what we've got better.
I think it's been a good company to have in our backyard for over 30 years now, since it was licensed. I would be in support of that relicensing should they decide that it is their decision to move forward. I think the constraints may be such that they decide not to, but Diablo Canyon's gonna be with us for many lifetimes. With the waste that's left, it will probably stay there. I doubt it will be transported anywhere else. So it will be there. They will have people working out there, I imagine, for generations to come, as long as the waste is stored there. It's been good, clean energy. I think it's provided many jobs for many families in this area, and it has been a big boost for our school system, who has received millions of dollars every year from their taxes and their contribution to the community. So if they're in favor of moving forward with it and they get the proper licensing, then I'm in favor of it as well.
I thought it was the San Luis School District that got the money.
It is,
The
it's San Luis
Sierra
Coastal.
got the money or just up
San
there?
Luis Coastal.
So South Wind got nothing.
I don't believe Lucia Mara gets money from that. I don't believe it does.
I thought you were concerned about the safety.
Well, the safety issue, we know the field rods are going to help us because. But how did you want to phrase it?
Oh, I just thought that was your concern. I'm not gonna.
Any other questions? Here we go.
Hello, my name's Terry. In terms of evaluating positions, I'm curious actually to stop looking forward for just a moment and look backwards. I wondered over the last couple or few years whether you could mention actual positions or votes taken by our current supervisor that you would have voted opposite or taken the opposing view.
Sure. I can probably mention two or three off the top of my head. The